Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2055. The topic is nutrition, and the title is Spring Cleaning. Consistency requires reprioritization. So one of my clients is a business client, meaning we do a Zoom call every week, as well as I do programming for them. They're a personal trainer, so I do their programming and then actually help them with ghost programming to do programming work for their clients. They asked me a fun question in our recent meeting that I thought would make for a good podcast. They asked the following: what is a piece of advice that you would give someone starting a new diet other than the specifics of the diet? And I was like, ooh, that's pretty good. So if somebody comes to me for diet advice, they usually want to know the diet stuff. You know, what to eat, when to eat, all that kind of stuff. So this client was asking, other than that, what advice do you give? The one piece of advice I decided to give in that conversation was, in order for the diet to be successful, you'll likely have to reassess your priorities and make adjustments. So let me give you a little story. I had a client who's relatively new. They're a nutrition-only client, so I'm helping them with nutrition. They are not really big into exercise. I've asked them to pay attention to their step count, and we're discussing whether or not to exercise. But they're not a big fan of it, and they really just want the nutritional help. In part of our program, we have taken a look at their breakfast. Essentially what's happened is they're not really overweight as much as they're under-muscled and overly fat. So their body weight is actually, it's a little higher than quote-unquote where it should be, where they'd like it to be. But they're not like 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight. They're about 10, 15 pounds overweight, but they feel very soft and pudgy. Now, this is why I've been I stated the case for resistance training and exercise to help build muscle tissue, to help bring the muscle up as we would want to bring the fat down. So I have kind of talked about that, so we'll skip past that, but I will want to at least mention it. So we're looking at nutrition is we want to clean up their nutrition so they can reduce water retention, they can feel a little bit leaner. Now, that is not going to solve everything, because as they lose body fat, they're just going to become thinner and thinner and thinner. They might not like the way they look that thin, so then we'd want to add muscle. So that's the idea of discussing the weight training component. However, in their nutrition, one of the things we discussed was their breakfast. Previously, they would have coffee and maybe some fruit sometimes, but that was it. And then mid-morning, they were hungry, which led to them snacking at the office. Or if they made it to lunch without snacking, they would overeat at lunch. They would eat with coworkers, go to a restaurant, end up eating, an appetizer plus a full meal plus a dessert, or just go a little crazy. They would overeat. And then that led to them feeling like they screwed up the day. So then the whole rest of the day they made poor choices, because what did it matter, right? They already screwed up. They had assumed, though, that their hunger response in the morning and at lunch, that it was a lack of discipline. But they're a very disciplined person. They're a very mentally tough person. So I was telling them, I'm like, bullshit. Like, look at where you're at in life. They're very successful. I said, you're very successful. You're doing great things. You are mentally strong as hell. Like, don't give me that bullshit, So I was like, that is not the problem. It is not discipline. And I understand it, because they weren't aware of the nutritional choices they were making and how that was impacting their emotions and energy and things. So in their mind, they didn't know any other option other than it just being lack of discipline. So it was helpful to have the discussion, because as we've been working on making changes, when they've had some good days, they have seen how different it can make them feel and how much better it makes them feel. So they were thinking the hunger response eating was lack of discipline, but it's actually because they were just underfed. So they got up in the morning, they took in caffeine, which is like a stimulant, and it kind of gets the body up and moving, and you're, doing things. But then they weren't eating really anything of substance for 6, 7, 8 hours. So their body was in a severe deficit, and it was sending signals then to work to mitigate that deficit. It wanted to, hey, I'm running on empty. I'm actually beyond empty, because you don't eat enough in we don't exercise. I don't really have any glycogen. I don't have any stored reserves. I have body fat for sure, but the body doesn't want to use that when it seems like it's the last option. So therefore, when it uses it up, you have no option and you're dead. So the body's saying, hey, we're really hungry. I need you to eat food. And what the body gets the person to eat is simple, easy, fun foods, because that's easier to talk you into than eating, protein or some healthy foods. So they were thinking it was lack of discipline, but it wasn't. They were just simply underfed, and the body was trying to correct that by sending cravings. Now, I provided options for her to eat for breakfast based on things that she liked. We talked about nuts in, you can buy in pouches, little 100-calorie snack packs kind of stuff. And I said, why don't you get, on your way out of the door? She drives, has a commute to work. I said, grab one of the nut packages and a Core Power drink, which is like a protein-based, chocolate milk kind of thing. But I said, take one of those. She actually talked about, she had thought about using a protein supplement before. And I was like, well, this will be a good one. It's pre-made, which was a big concern for her, taking time. So I was like, okay, this is something quick. You can grab it out the door and go. Another option we gave was some overnight oats. So she could prepare a little, cup of overnight oats with various things and ingredients in it that she could have in the morning, quick and easy. It's already ready to go. Another quick option is some Greek yogurt and granola. She could just mix that up in the morning, eat it while she's, sipping on coffee or watch a little TV or whatever in the world she's doing, or she could eat it in the car if she wanted to. Probably a little dangerous, but she could even take it to the office and eat it when she gets in the office because she's a private office. And I was like, here's 3 good options. And then I gave her some macronutrients. If you're going to pick something else, here's the calories, here's the protein to aim for. Then over the next 10 days, she had 8 different breakfast variations. So she would have the nuts, but not the Core Power, or the Core Power, but not the nuts. Or she'd plan for overnight oats, but didn't make them. So she just skipped breakfast entirely. I had asked her why she was struggling with consistency. She responded that she hadn't had time to go to the grocery store, or that at night she was too tired to make the overnight oats, or she had bought, non-fat-free Greek yogurt, and since it wasn't fat-free, she was afraid the extra calories would be a problem, so she just skipped the food entirely. To which I responded, okay, if you don't have time to go to the grocery store, use Instacart or Amazon. And she lives in America. She lives in a major city, so she has access to those things. I said, time at night. If you're too tired to make the overnight oats, first of all, you can make more than just one day at a time. So make a batch. And then second of all, if you're too tired, then eat one of the other options. So buy enough to have some other options around. And then for extra calorie concern, our goal was to increase calories. The difference between the 2 yogurts was only 60 calories. Our daily range of calories is a 300 calorie range, that she can be anywhere within a 300 calorie range, and she would be okay. So I said we could definitely fit in 60 extra calories. Then on top of that, text me or call me or write in your journal if you have questions if you weren't sure about whether this yogurt was good or not good. The main issue we eventually settled on was she hadn't prioritized her new diet. She was making mistakes with other meals of the day as well, and her adherence to the diet was less than 50% of the meals. So less than 50% of the meals over 10 days she actually was having within her options and or correct macronutrients, correct stuff like that. So I asked her why. And she's dieted before. She's tried tons of diets. She's very familiar with nutrition tracking apps, counting calories and all that stuff. None of this is new to her. So I asked her why. And she responded that she has felt overwhelmed with everything going on in her life. And although she wants to make a change, she doesn't know how to change. So the problem wasn't the specifics of the diet. The problem was prioritizing the actions needed to actually follow the diet, to fulfill the actions of the diet. New grocery shopping strategies. New food prep planning and schedule. Choosing to eat over choosing other things. Learning what's important versus what's urgent. Her struggle wasn't what to eat. Her struggle was prioritizing that she needed to eat. And that's a common mistake people make. They want to start something new, a new goal, a new habit. They want to produce a new result. But often, they keep all of the old and just try to cram the new into it. So they keep all their old actions, all their old thoughts, all their old habits, everything that's been in their life stays. And they just try to cram these new behaviors, these new actions into their life. But we don't live with much margin. And that's, oh my gosh, like if you ever, like pot calling the kettle black kind of thing, I do not live with much margin. I understand that. I have had a really good friend tell me that, like, dude, you need some more margin in your life. And my response has always been a very playful but stubborn, if I had any margin, I'd just fill it anyhow. So the challenge is we don't live with much margin. Like people, notoriously don't live with much financial margin, but we also don't live with emotional margin, mental health margin, physical energy margin. We often don't live our lives with an open space that's just sitting and waiting and ready for something to fill it in, right? So this requires that instead of keeping the old, we have to take a deeper look at our current lifestyle, our current habits, and clean house, as a client once put it. When I told her this concept before, she responded, I guess it's time to do some spring cleaning. And I always thought that was a funny response. Of what we do, what do we need to keep? What can we do differently? What can we defer and do it, later or in batches rather than single individual actions? Or what can we delegate to someone else or something else, like a service, like using Instacart rather than going grocery shopping yourself? And then also of what we do, is there anything we don't need to be doing anymore? Anything that we can eliminate? There's a really good podcast 1023. I do realize that that's an older podcast, over 1,000 ago, and likely whatever podcast player you're on doesn't go back that far. But if you want to go listen to that podcast, and I really, truly would recommend it, it's one of the more downloaded ones, and I've gotten really good response to that podcast. But podcast 1023, you can go to our website, www.brutalirongym.com. You can scroll down on the homepage. There's a podcast player that goes back 300 episodes, but underneath it are instructions on how to find older podcasts. So podcast 1023 is a great one. I think what I'll do also is on our Instagram channel, I think they're called channels, Instagram page, Instagram whatever account. On the top, there's a link, like a bio link, and it has like a link for sign up for services and whatnot. But I'll throw in a link for this podcast 1023. So you can go to the website, you can follow the instructions to find it, or you can go to Instagram, click on the link in our bio, and I'll make this podcast available. So you just click on it there. So Instagram, bio link, boom, done. But one of the concepts we feature in that podcast are the 4 Ds. Delete, defer, delegate, and do. These are extremely helpful when you're kind of considering cleaning house. Is of what I do, what can I delete? Of what I do, what can I defer? And deferred can mean do it like another time. So maybe this isn't the season of life where you need to be maintaining that. You can kind of push that off or reduce efforts there. Also, I think of defer as you can like bulk it. So for example, if she's trying to make overnight oats every night that she thinks she may need it the next day, if she believes, okay, overnight oats I like, but I'm probably only going to eat it maybe 3 or 4 times in a week, then just on a Sunday night, make 3 of them. So bulk it together, batch it, and that can help a lot. Delegate is give stuff away, give it to a service. Yeah, so if you spend a lot of time cleaning and that seems to be a rough thing for you, you don't really enjoy it, get a cleaning service. I know all these things cost money. I'm not ignorant to that. However, if you have disposable income to do it, but you're wasting a lot of time, and that's negatively taking away from you being able to diet, taking you away from being able to exercise. Why not delegate things away? Why not hire a service to do that? Like hire a service to cut your grass, hire a service to do odds and ends that you don't want to do. Like there in major metropolitan cities, there's often like services that'll do like dry cleaning and laundry for you. So you don't have to do that if that's something that you don't want to have to go drop off things. Like grocery stores, like grocery shopping is one of the things that helps a lot of clients, is because that'll often take 2 or 3 hours in a week. And then they tell me they don't have time to food prep or they don't have time to work out. And it's like, why don't you get an Instacart? And it's definitely a little extra cost, but not like insane. Or use Amazon and get some stuff shipped to your house. Why not use one of those services, take those 2 or 3 hours back in your life and use that for food prepping and just taking care of yourself. Maybe you use 3 hours to take a nap because you're probably tired as hell. So the idea with delegation is to, again, in the theme of prioritization, what matters more to me? Is it, is the $20 a month I spend on this service, or even $200 a month I spend on this service? Does that save me 4 hours a month or more? And in those 4 hours a month, could I be doing something extra? So that's an hour a week. Could I then use that hour a week to food prep? And now all of a sudden, I'm taking care of my nutrition. I feel excited. I feel proactive. I feel like I'm crushing life. Everything in life feels a lot better, all because I just delegated that one thing. It sounds overblown, but it's absolutely not. I promise you it's not. People have reported that. I've felt it in my own life, is as I've been able to delegate things or, kind of reprioritize, defer, batch things. As I've been able to do that, I feel as though I have more control over my life. That breeds more positivity, which breeds more proactive action. And all of a sudden, life gets a lot better. So these are things that are very helpful, very important to think through. And then the fourth D, we had delete, defer, delegate, and the last one is do. And if you're going to continue to do something, how can you do it more efficiently? So that would be something to look into as well. But these are all steps that would help everyone when adding any new habit, new goal, especially a new way of eating. So if you've struggled to implement a new diet or a new routine of any kind, but you still have that desire, there's still something in you that still wants to make it happen. You just don't know how. Don't know how to fit it in, right? Well, reprioritization is likely the best place to start. Before you do new, clean house. Do some spring cleaning, and better organize the old. To learn how to do it in more detail, you can listen to podcast 1023. So you can go to the website, follow the instructions underneath the podcast player, or you can go to our Instagram page, and I'll make the link on the Instagram page. But I also want to leave you with this thought. What sustains me versus what progresses me? So in everything you do per day, of what you do, what sustains quality of life? What sustains you? What sustains life where it is? What keeps everything the same? Versus what progresses me, what grows me, what brings new into my life? What is making my life better? What is going to push my life above the same? Often when we think through the things that we do every day, those are two main categories or buckets that most things can fall into. Stuff that sustains us versus stuff that progresses us. The things that progress you should be prioritized above the things that sustain you. It doesn't mean that we don't have to do the sustaining behaviors. We absolutely do. But what it means is they shouldn't get the best of you. They should be streamlined, deferred, delegated, just whatever the hell gets it checked off the list for that day. But the stuff that progresses you, that should get the best of you. That should get your best self, your most excited, most fired up, most energetic self. What I found as a trick is to front load my day with the things that progress me. And then as I go throughout the day, do the things that sustain me. The reason why is at the beginning of the day, I have the most excitement and the most energy. Then as the day goes on, I get less excited, I get less energy. So by the end of the day, I'm tired as hell and I don't care about much, right? You're just kind of burned out. So I do the things that progress me as early and as quickly as I can in the day. And then I start switching over to the things that sustain me with whatever I have left in the day. Energy-wise, emotional-wise, mental-wise. That is one method of organization that I found works very well for me, and clients often enjoy this as well. I find it beneficial, is what sustains me versus what progresses me. Give the progresses me stuff your best self. Give it the most fresh energy, the most effort, the most just excitement that you can give it. And then the sustain stuff, do that later, do that whenever, do that as you're able to. My old way of thinking was I used to do all the sustain stuff first. Because I was like, okay, well, I'll know I have it done. I don't have the anxiety of trying to wait to make sure I get it done. So then, after I do all the sustain stuff, oh, good, the rest of the day is mine. I can do whatever I need to do or whatever I want to do for myself. Yeah, but at the end of the day, like after you do all the sustain stuff, you're tired as hell and you don't really care much. You make shitty decisions, you're lazy, and you don't really do a good quality of the stuff that progresses you. What was interesting was I would have anxiety about not doing the things that sustained me. But it was okay if I didn't do the things that progressed me. Like at the end of the day, if I was supposed to work out and I was like, I'm too tired, I'm not going to work out today. Or I'm too tired to eat this food, I'm going to eat this lazy food instead. Right? We don't have anxiety about those choices. That's pretty shit. That's unfortunate. We should be more anxious about skipping the things that progress us. So switching that mindset was huge for me, like earlier in my life. Switching from do all the sustain me stuff first, make sure that's checked off, and then with whatever's left, I'll do the progress me stuff. Bullshit. You don't get great progression. That's not good quality effort. So I flipped it. And I started to care more about whether I got the progress me stuff in compared to the sustain me stuff. The sustain me keeps me the same. I don't want to stay the same. I want to grow. So I need to prioritize the growing stuff, the progression stuff. Give that the best of myself. And then I'll get in the sustain stuff as much as I can. I have found that has led to a much better life, much happier life. And you still get enough done to sustain things. So I'd urge you, if you're not focusing on progression behaviors first, that I encourage you to do so. And I'm willing to bet that if you do so, it's going to help a lot. It's really going to help grow you in life. You're going to feel more excited for life. You're going to feel more fired up and more hopeful. So I hope that you make that change. Listen to podcast 1023 for kind of the in-depth details of how to really make those changes. And then if you have any questions, you need anything, reach out on the website. You can sign up for the one-on-one services, or you can just send me a message if you have a general question. On the bottom of the homepage is a contact form. You can send any question you want, and I'll answer it. I answer everybody's questions within 2 weeks. So please feel encouraged, and I hope you feel excited if you ever reach out, that you have somebody who's willing to help and excited to help. Okay. Well, if you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people we can help. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on the website. Also, if you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.